Okay, so I'm going to test my alternator using the in dash battery voltage indicator. Um Essentially, what should happen is the alternator takes over after I start the car. So the battery voltage before I start the car tells me about the health of the batteries. This car has two batteries, so it'll tell me the health of the battery before I start the car. And as soon as I start the car, the alternator is what takes over. And so after I start the car, that tells me the health of the alternator. So in this case, it's a 2004 E500 W211 chassis, Mercedes. There is actually a hack, or what you might call a way to show the battery voltage on the dash itself. Actually, it's a way to show the voltage on the dash. That's either the voltage from the battery or the alternator on the dash itself. And I saw another YouTube video where you press this 3 times, this button on the dash, and it brings up a display that actually shows you the voltage either coming from the battery or the alternator on the dash itself. So I don't need a multimeter necessarily to check the voltage. So I'm gonna try that. Actually, I think it you have to bring it to a regular display. Here showing me some other error messages, but I think you need to be on a regular display. So here, this is the regular display. It shows me the temperature, and I'm going to try pressing this button 3 times. Nothing happened, but it's probably because I need to first at least power the car. So I'm powered the car now, or at least I put in the key, and let's see if it doesn't yet work. So I'm gonna at least turn on the instrument cluster. Okay, so I have some power to the instrument cluster and also the radio, and let's try this again. Yep, there. So when you have power, it shows you, now this is what the battery shows me, 11.4 volts. So that's not good. That means the battery is low. This is probably the power coming out from the main battery, which is in the trunk. It should be at least 12 volts. So 11.4 is not good enough. I think it should be more like 12.7. I mean, much higher than 12 also. So this tells me there's some issue with the battery, the main battery. But now I'm going to start the car, and that'll tell me the voltage output from the alternator itself. So first I'm going to, what will happen is when I try to use some power features of the car, it should lower the battery voltage. So I'm going to try turning on the headlights, for example. It's 11.4 volts now. When I turn on the headlights, it should go lower. Although I have some of my headlights are LED headlights, but they also have a resistor to make them use the same amount of power. So this voltage should go down when I use some electrical features in the car. So 11.4. Let's see if I turn on the headlight manually. Let's basically, there I have the headlights on, still 11.4. I'm going to try to use the power windows. Yeah, I did turn down to 11.3, back to 11.4. Power windows again. Now the AC should use also a lot more power. the AC fan, which is below the dash. So I'm going to turn on the air conditioner and see what happens. Does it consume some power, the voltage? So I'm going to try that now. Turn on the saying rest, flashing rest. I'm not sure what that means. And it turns off. It says 11.3 volts. So it didn't let me turn on the AC. How about the radio?
Airplane hangar in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay, the AC turned on, but that means, I mean, the radio turned on, but maybe that doesn't consume much power. Anyway, now I'm gonna try this battery, by the way, is not very old. I think it may be 1 years, maybe 2 years old at the most. So I'm not sure why it should be bad. But it's also possible the battery is not charged because the alternator is actually, so it's not necessary that this is a battery problem, because maybe the battery discharged a bit because the alternator is what's really bad. So now I'm going to start the car. So the headlights are still on. I'm going to turn off the headlights and see if it goes back to 11.4 volts maybe, or something like that. So I'm going to turn it off, put it on auto, and it's back to 11.4 volts. Okay, now I'm going to start the car, and this will actually tell me what is the output of the alternator on the dash itself. So let's try that, and then that'll tell us if it's really the alternator that's bad, because of which the battery has discharged a bit, or if the alternator is okay. So when I turn on the car, when I fire the engines, essentially the battery power should go way higher than 12. It should maybe be around 14 volts. That's what I heard in many of the videos that I saw, and that would tell me the health of the alternator. If it's anyway below 12 volts, that's for sure a problem with the alternator, because and the alternator in this car also has a voltage regulator attached to it. So the alternator actually has two pieces: the actual alternator, which is in the front passenger right side of the car, and it also has a voltage regulator attached to it, and the voltage regulator can uh, wear out. It's got some kind of a bushing, or like some kind of a metal contact, which can go bad with time. So sometimes you can get away with just replacing the voltage regulator on the alternator and not the alternator itself. But anyway, I'm going to start the car now and see what the output of the alternator is. I'm going to ignite the engines. So this is a different issue, the brake malfunction. Battery alternator. Oh yeah, it's telling me a battery alternator problem, stop vehicle. I haven't seen this error before actually. Brake malfunction this is another issue, but battery alternator, and then gives me this error also, battery voltage too low. But at this point it's the alternator that's supplying the power. So if there's not enough power, it's an alternator issue. So let's see if I can clear this in any way. It doesn't even let me clear it. It's now showing me the other warning, the visit workshop, battery alternator, stop vehicle, brake malfunction. So it never really showed me this error before. This is the first time I'm seeing it. I did use a scanner before this, and maybe it set some code which is not cleared, and that's why it's causing all these errors. I'm going to try this display, it's still, when I turned off the engine, it still got that battery alternator error. I'm going to try to clear it. It's not clearing either. I'm going to try pressing this 3 times, this button. 1, 2, 3. Still not clearing. Okay, I'm going to remove the key. Still not clearing. The other way to test the alternator is to actually measure the voltage on the battery terminals after you start the car. So that's another test I'm going to do. But looks like the dash is not showing me the voltage. Instead, it's showing me this error message. But it's very likely it's actually the alternator that's not supplying enough power. So the display's gone off. Now I'm going to just start the display again. Just keep the camera on the display and see what happens to the voltage as soon as I start the car. Okay, so it's still not getting rid of that warning message for me. So now this is actually the battery supply, not the alternator. That's why it says battery alternator stop vehicle. So I'm going to turn off the radio just so that, and it looks like the AC is now working, but I'm going to turn off the AC so that way. Okay, I'm turning off the AC so that I'm using minimal power in the car. Still not able to get that display where it shows me the voltage. So I'm going to turn off the car again. Wait for the display to disappear. It looks like I may have to do that actual physical test with a multimeter on the battery terminals, otherwise I wouldn't know. But it looks like there's enough power in the battery to start the car at least. So that's a good thing that I at least have a way to start the car so that I can check the voltage output of the alternator. Because if I couldn't start the car even, then there's no way to know what voltage the alternator is supplying. Okay, anyway, the display is off again. Let's try this again. Oh no, this error is still there. There's no beeping, but the error is still there. Trying to see, I can't seem to get rid of the error. Okay, and let's try. I'm not able to get the display back. Let's see what happens if I try to start the car. Now this brake malfunction, it could be because of the SBC battery, which is a secondary auxiliary battery in the front, and maybe that is also discharged to some degree, so that's not supplying enough power to the SBC brakes. Bottom line is, it looks like all these problems that I'm seeing may be related to the alternator. So, but at the same time, I have no way to check the output of the alternator unless I use a multimeter. So tomorrow I'm going to try the test using a multimeter on the physical terminals of the battery, and I'm not able to get back that display again. So I'll try again tomorrow to measure the output, but at least the car is started, so that means The main battery is good enough for now.